Sheil, I will start you off with the breaking news that Jaylen Carter just signed a contract extension, 4 years with the Eagles, over $100 million guaranteed. He's the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history. What are your initial thoughts on the deal?
Yeah, I was on the fence about whether this would get done or not. I said, if I had to guess about a week ago, I said, I think it will get done at some point this summer, but it is a little tricky just because Jaylen Carter was going to want to be paid at the top of the market. He had no incentive to do a deal unless he was going to be paid as the highest defensive tackle in the NFL. And we know that coming out of college, there were some question marks about Jaylen Carter. Not every team was comfortable drafting him. So anytime you're signing a player to this kind of money, it's about projection. It's not about, hey, he was great during that Super Bowl run and who knows if they beat the Rams in the NFC Championship without him. It's about the future. And obviously they got to a point where they were comfortable enough saying, hey, we want this guy to be kind of a foundational piece of our defense for the next 4 years or so.
Yeah, so there were some question marks that possibly could have kept him from signing a deal of this nature. It's $38 million, I believe, per year. So he's on top of the market here. Are you surprised that it's that much money?
I thought it was going to be around the $35 million mark, and that's because the way it works in the NFL is one great player at a position signs a contract, sets the bar, and then the next player who's in that player's class goes a little above them. So the player here was Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. He signed a contract for over $35 million per year this offseason. Jaylen Carter is a younger player than Jeffrey Simmons. And so I was thinking around that $35 million mark. Now, they went kind of above and beyond there. I mean, if you look at this, Pat, there's only two. He's making $10 million more per year than all but two defensive tackles in the NFL, which is kind of astounding. It's Chris Jones of the Chiefs and Jeffrey Simmons. So yeah, his side, his agent, they got what they wanted out of this deal. And if you're the Eagles, you say, hey, we have to decide, do we want to do it or not? Because if we wait a year from now, guess what? That 38 is going to go up to 40 or 41. That's how it works in the NFL with the salary cap increasing. So I think once they got to that point where they said, this is the neighborhood where we're comfortable shopping in, it probably became a matter of, hey, what's the guaranteed money look like? And they got the deal done.
Knowing the amount of money that he just made himself, what then do we need to see from Jaylen Carter over the next 4 years on the field and off?
Yeah, I think off the field, obviously, just, hey, you don't want to read his name in any headlines. You don't want any issues, And to be fair, from what's been reported and out there, it's not like there's been a lot of that with the Eagles since they drafted him. He had the incident with Dak Prescott last season where he spit on him. But, that's not off field. That's sort of emotions getting the better of you before a game there. So that aspect of it, I think we all know. You don't want to read any bad headlines about him off the field. On the field, you're paying him like he can be a defensive player of the year one of these years. And I do think he has that potential. I mean, if I showed you a reel of his top 25 plays from last year, it would be like, okay, this looks like the best defensive player in the football. I think it's a matter of consistency because I could also show you 25 where you say, wait a minute, that's a guy they're paying $38 million per year. So he's got that upside. He was playing with 2 shoulder injuries last year. You got to cut him some slack for that after that Super Bowl run. And so I think you're really expecting him to be maybe the best defensive tackle in the NFL, one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, a guy who can take over games, and a guy who can be in that conversation for literally best defensive player in football, one or multiple seasons.
So it's a heavy number. We know that the cap keeps growing every year, and we know that the Eagles employ Howie Roseman, who's one of the best cap manipulators in the NFL. That being said, we're not far off from other guys on this defense getting big paydays. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell are 2 of them. How does this hurt them getting money? Or does it help them, or does it not even matter because Howie's Howie?
Yeah, I don't think it impacts them. I think those are 2 very easy ones for the Eagles. If you look at the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, unless something wild happens this year that we're not expecting, Quinyon Mitchell is in the running for best cornerback in football. Cooper DeJean is in the running for best nickel. He's going to play some safety this year in football. Those are foundational pieces with no character question marks, with no off-field question marks, who you drafted, who you developed. I would expect, Pat, at this time next year, we'll have a conversation. Hey, Quinyon Mitchell's the highest paid corner in the NFL. Hey, Cooper DeJean's the highest paid nickel in the NFL. Now, you are right. that you can't pay everyone. I don't think it's going to affect those players. One guy to keep an eye on who I think it does affect, Moro Ojimo, kind of a little unheralded player on this defense, who is a very good defensive tackle. He's a free agent after the year. And I think when you're paying Jordan Davis and Jaylen Carter this kind of money, I think Ojimo is probably going to go that route of Milton Williams, where he's going to try to have a great season for the Eagles this season, test the market, and he's a guy who might be in his last year here with the Eagles.
Camp's about to start. That happens tomorrow. And I wanted to get your thoughts on who do you look at as maybe the most important people as camp starts? Maybe not, we're not talking positionally, but if you had to rank maybe the top 2 or 3 people that we should be paying attention to as Eagles training camp starts, who would they be?
Yeah, I'm going to the offensive side of the ball because defensively, I feel pretty good about a lot of them. I could identify a couple there, but Mekhi Lemon is at the top of my list. I mean, rookie wide receiver. This is mostly a passing camp now. You're not doing a lot of tackling to the ground. This is where wide receivers, if they're performing at a high level, you can see it and you can tell, and you can see that chemistry with Jalen Hurts, and you can see, all right, does he know his assignments? Has he picked up the playbook? How does he look one-on-one going up against who we just talked about, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean? He doesn't have to win every battle, but are there a couple times where everybody looks and says, okay, all right, the kid's got a little something to him here, and he's going to have to play a big role for them right away. So I think Mekhi Lemon's at the top of my list. And then I go to the offensive line, and this is a little harder to gauge, during training camp. Sometimes you can't tell during the regular season, but so much about the expectations for this team in 2026 are about Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. And those guys who were terrific during the Super Bowl year and last year were dealing with injuries to the point where they had to go to South America and get the stem cell treatments, and now they're coming back, and you're hoping you get some version of them that are quality starting offensive linemen. And if you do, I think this offense could be in good shape. And if you don't, I think this offense could be in some trouble. So those are probably the guys that would be at the top of my list.
All right, last question for you. Is this a make or break year for Jalen Hurts?
To a degree, yes. And I think you might be able to put Nick Sirianni's name in there as well. I mean, when you're the Eagles and you've had the success they've had as an organization, the expectations are always high. And Howie Roseman has been on a heater with the roster he's put together. And so I'm not saying they got to win the Super Bowl or everyone's gone. It's not that. We know there are degrees to this, and you have to look at injuries, and you have to look at, did the team improve, all those things. But yeah, I do think there is pressure on those two guys who have had an unprecedented run as far as Eagles football goes. I mean, we've never seen a 5-year run like this since we've been alive, even before we were alive, Pat. So, but I do think there's some pressure on them where if you underachieve, if you miss out on the playoffs, now some hard questions have to be asked. If you make a playoff run, it's easy. You're moving forward with those two guys. And if you're somewhere in the middle, that's where we have all the arguments that we can save until next offseason.
All right, the last question, I promise. Over under, now that Sean Mannion's in charge of the Eagles offense, over under, they are the 12th best offense in football.
I have them a little worse than that right now. Now, I want to see how the next month goes, but I have them maybe around 14, 15, 16. Just the uncertainty of new offensive coordinator, new scheme for Jalen Hurts, the offensive line, again, the uncertainty there that I want to get some answers to over the next month, losing A.J. Brown. So I think there's going to be some ups and downs. I think if you're an Eagles fan, what you want, Pat, is that there's some ups and downs early. The defense is good enough. You win games. And then we get to like Thanksgiving. We get to December and we're saying, okay, it looks like things are actually starting to click, and some of those things that were issues early in the season, now the offense is picking it up, hitting its stride before you go into the postseason. So that's kind of maybe formula, blueprint, whatever you want to call it. I think that's kind of what I'm keeping an eye on for this Eagles offense.
Sheil, are you asking for patience from the Eagles fan base?
As always, the most patient fan base in America, as far as I'm concerned. That's been my experience, Pat. I don't know, but what you're talking about.
You're absolutely right. Sheil, thanks, buddy. Appreciate the time.